Live from Miami, Florida.
I am Linda.
And I am Bella.
And this is our podcast, Mostly Peaceful Latinas, where every week we will discuss current events, politics, pop culture,
and everything else related to the state of the clown world. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Mostly Peaceful Latinas. I'm your host, Bella.
And I'm Linda.
And before we get started, don't forget to show us some support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Forever grateful for all of the love and encouragement that we receive from you guys. So let's go and get started. Another week of headlines in
crazy
the clown world. In the clown world, guys. What are we starting off with this week?
One of the craziest things that I think it's not being talked about within the conservative movement is the new Texas GOP platform. And the Texas GOP just met a few days ago. They had their convention and they have a new chairman. And the platform it's one that obviously the mainstream media is calling far-right extremist, fascist, radical. But it's also one that presents the Texas GOP on the offense rather than defense, because they are finally understanding that there's no coexisting with the degenerate left, that you cannot compromise with the left because they haven't compromised in the past 30 years. And I
mean, they've been very clear on where they're willing to meet conservatives at, and it's not in the middle over the last 2 years.
No, because anything middle right now becomes fascism and far-right authoritarianism. So
let's look at the direct quote. So Matt Rinaldi, who's the GOP chairman of Texas, quotes, "We can't compromise with Democrats. We have a different and we have a different and incompatible vision for our future." I mean, wow, right there alone. "We need to be a bold and unapologetic conservative party ready to go offensive and win the fight for our country." I mean,
beautiful.
No, I mean, it couldn't have been any more well said.
Short, simple, and to the point, which is
straight to the
right.
point.
And that one thing that he said, that we have an incompatible vision of the future, is exactly what is separating the right and left. Whether people want to go on this whole woke little rant of like, oh, there's no political sides. It's very true that there is a unit party from both sides who are driving this country to the ground, who are burning it down, who helped get President Trump out of the White House. But it's also true that there are some America First fighters who have a completely different vision of the future than that of the uniparty. And that is us as well, where we understand that there's only one way to battle the demonic, degenerate left, and that is by playing offense and not giving a crap what the media has to say if they label you a racist, a xenophobe, a transphobe, a homophobe, because at the end of the day, being, yeah, sure, we're okay with, gay rights. That's not enough, because if you don't allow your kids to be sexualized in schools, you are indeed the homophobe. So, one of the things, and we'll go over every single point, but one of the things that they're hitting hard is the nuclear family. Because we have seen that there is a shift within the GOP to a more diverse big tent party, which in theory sounds great. Of course, we want to welcome whatever nationalities and religions and sexualities and whatnot, but then you start changing the culture. There's no differences between one party and the other, except for lower taxes. Right. See what I mean? And that's a problem that even the younger Generation Z, the millennials, that the right-wing conservatives are saying, dude, you guys are almost at the same level of acceptance of everything than the Democratic Party, especially with the transgender, problem. Yeah.
You brought up a good point, which is the minute that you go even veer off the slightest bit to the right from the middle, you're considered an extremist, and that's when they start calling you names. And I remember specifically during my awakening, I remember calling my parents, who have always been long-term conservatives. I've told you I was a Democrat at home, but my family considered me a communist, because how dare you be a Democrat in a conservative household? And I remember when she told me, she was like, oh, I'm so happy you finally see it, you finally get it. And then she told me, are you ready though? Because what happens is that when you stand strong on conservative views, immediately the attacks will begin on your character.
Right.
You will be called a racist, a Nazi, a xenophobe, a homophobic, because it's the only way that they can try and slow you down is by making you question your own I guess it's not even just your thought process, but who you are as a human being. You start questioning, like, wow, is there something wrong with me? When you start having, like, am I a bad person? And having leadership in Texas double down and be like, absolutely not. This is our party. We want our party to stand for conservative values, and we don't care what it is that you may call us or what you may call Texas. This is what we're going to prioritize this year, was just such an amazingly based move on behalf of Texas. And I can't wait to see Florida do something like it.
Absolutely. And let's go over what the GOP platform stands for, or what they have in this 40-page document. Obviously, we're not going to read the whole thing, but here it is. The first and foremost, the first thing that has the mainstream media so pissed off, and Twitter just went on a freaking, it was a nightmare yesterday, declaring Biden an illegitimate president. So the Texas GOP is saying that President Biden is only an acting president because he was not legitimately elected by the people of the United States of America. They also reject that decision. They also talk about how Secretary of State acted in an illegal way by certifying these votes. They're also talking about secession. Is that how you say?
Yeah, secession.
Secession. So they want to give the voters the right to actually vote. So just the fact that we're talking about this in 2022.
Because I think the secession had always been something that I remember hearing rumblings of secession, but it was always one of those things that was like so far, like Nizara. It was like, it's so far off. Like, those aren't things that could ever happen. I remember thinking, like, oh, we should just see California. We don't want anything to do with them. And like, now to have in the actual headlines, to have leadership of the party say, no, absolutely not. We feel so unrepresented by the rest of America that we rather secede as a state. And that's, I mean, it's incredibly terrifying, but at the same time, it's like, well, shit. I mean, how much longer before we got to this point where conservatives said enough is enough of us being pushed around? And
by the federal government.
I love the wording. I love saying we're taking an offensive, we're taking an offense view here. That is so imperative to making any significant change, because for so long the Conservative Party has been
the Rhinos, the Unit Party, the Mitch McConnells of the world,
reactive.
The Kevin McCarthy's.
It's always been reactive to attacks from the left. So it's like, oh, we want to enact red flag laws. Well, no, we can't do that. So now, because it's not offensive, now we need to meet in the middle on an issue that maybe we would have otherwise not wanted to. So to have the party just lay down a really clear line and say, we're not moving from here, and this is where our values and where our priorities are going to be at this year, says a lot. And it also opens up the door for other states to do the same. Not calling Biden a legitimate president was probably one of the most controversial things in secession as well. But they've been very big on not, saying that LGBTQ rights, that is a sexual orientation and it is a choice and therefore shouldn't be a protected class. Correct. It's a lifestyle, so it is a choice. There
was a big controversy with the log cabin Republicans of Texas. The log cabin Republicans are a group of gay Republicans, and they wanted to set up a booth at the convention and they denied them access. So that was a very big controversy. Don Jr. chimed in saying that, the GOP, the Texas GOP shouldn't be, fighting or trying to reject this LGBT group, but rather include them because they are on the fight with his father, President Trump. And I think that is actually a very weak position on Don Jr. I think he should have taken his father's approach, where you don't even have to acknowledge that's going on because it is a Texas GOP. The reality is that this is not an attack on the LGBT rights. What they're saying is that they want to make sure that people differentiate the parties, where they are a pro-nuclear family, meaning father and mother and children, that they are against the sexualization of children, the transgenderism, and all that, and gender ideology that has completely perpetrated every single institution. So when you go so far left, that yesterday we watched a video on the Navy talking about pronouns. I didn't even watch the whole thing because I just it's so embarrassing to even see the Navy talk about pronouns and how you should be using them. Like, this is what's worrying our forces, our armed forces, which is pronouns. It's so embarrassing when you have everything completely perpetrated by this ideology, you better believe that there is going to be a backlash that is going to be very radical, and it's not even going to acknowledge a section of that entire,
well, isn't that what we're seeing? Isn't that exactly what this is? This is exactly what it is. This is what they would consider radical. It's like, well, okay, here, if you look, I would love to kind of make a comparison of what have been the priorities of the Texas GOP over the last 4 years and how drastically different that is to what it is that they've prioritized this year. I want to go back into the topic of the protecting LGBTQ as a protected class and what that actually means. We've all heard the story of the bakery that refused to bake a cake for the gay couple because of their own religious views, and then they ended up getting sued because of that. This what the Texas GOP is presenting is that people have the right to reject the LGBTQ lifestyle if it contradicts their faith. People don't have the right to be violent, to be nasty, to be rude, but people do have the right to stand firm on their beliefs and and their core values. And if that is not compatible with the LGBT community, as long as there is no harm being done to the LGBT, where there's a restriction of their own rights, then people should be allowed to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
If somebody decides, and I feel firmly on this, if somebody decides that it's like, for whatever reasons, I don't like Cubans and I don't want to serve Cubans in my restaurant, I don't have to go there. And as an American, that person has every right to feel whatever way. Can I feel that they're a shitty person for it or not educated enough? Sure, I can feel that way about it. But this country allows that person to have that specific
It used to allow it.
Now
you can't do that anymore. Because then you're a racist and you're a bigot, and now you're going to get sued for discrimination against a black person or a Latino or whatever it is. You don't have that right anymore. And that's actually also a problem. But with that being said, another thing that this Texas GOP has to say is that any type of gun control is it's a rights violation.
And that they're going to look at the representatives that have been voting. Yeah. For these red flag laws, gun laws, any kind of restrictive laws, because again, it needs to be looked at.
Absolutely.
These people are supposed to be out there representing, being representatives of conservative values, and then they go off to Congress and they vote completely different than the platforms that they ran on. So you've got individuals, I know, like we have with Maria Elvira or Carlos Jimenez, who run on platforms gearing towards the Cuban American vote and being anti-communist, and my family escaped Fidel Castro, and then they get up to Tallahassee and they vote
with the Democrats every single time
on red flag laws, on the January 6th committee. It's like, at what point do we hold? It's like, you're already there. We voted you in. You're going to have to do what it is that we tell you to, because the party is holding them accountable to what it was that you promised. It's not like we're forcing, like the party is forcing you to do anything other than exactly what it was that you promised your constituents that you were going to do when you got elected. So holding those representatives accountable.
They also reject and call for the United States to leave the United Nations, which I think it's a good idea, and it's something that I think Trump was really would always talk about, because the United Nations is extremely corrupt. Take the example, actually, what's going on in Ukraine. Really quickly, I was reading on some article about, how many losses the Ukrainian military has actually had, where at the beginning they lied and said that Russia was losing a lot of men. That wasn't true. And the United Nations actually rejects the idea that the Ukrainian military has committed crimes against the people of Donbass. They just completely reject it. They ignore it, and therefore they spread their propaganda around the world and makes everyone that does not agree with that statement and everybody that says otherwise look completely insane or a puppet propagandist. So I'm a huge hater of the United Nations. We have found so many crimes within that organization alone, from rapes that have been covered up by the so-called peacekeepers and whatnot. So I think that overall, if we could get our way, that and the World Health Organization should be things that we completely get rid of.
I think any of these organizations that basically are just fronts to bring globalists together in order for them to be able to contemplate their ideas and how they're going to rule over. The United States shouldn't have, if it's my choice, the United States shouldn't have any part of that. Because again, it's just, It's a soft entry
into the new world order.
The new world
because
order.
Exactly, just like the vaccines. But you know, we want to see where this goes. As of now, this is just a platform where they wrote on their new, I guess, bylaws or document, whatever it is.
It's basically what they're going to be prioritizing this
year. With candidates and whatnot. So we're going to see where that goes. And if any states follows, I'm sure that Florida would be one of the states that would follow into declaring a similar platform than that of the Texas GOP. And with that being said, we move on to communism has completely taken over Latin America. We talked about the Colombian election 2 episodes ago when a new candidate had emerged. And now on Sunday, they had the final round. And Petro, the ex-guerrilla member, Soros puppet, won the election by more than 50%. Rodolfo got about 47% of the votes. So
47.3%.
He didn't do bad, but obviously fell short to Petro. Now, obviously, there are rumors of fraud and whatnot. I have not looked at that, so I don't even want to go there. But I think that
just to recap a little bit for those that didn't watch the episode 2 weeks ago, one of the really eye-opening things about the elections in Colombia in particular was the vast difference between the two candidates.
Right.
You had Colombia first, if you will, very Trumpian type candidate fighting for the people, and then you have this ex-guerrilla FARC member, open communist socialist, open socialist running, and it was really 2 completely different ideologies that we were going to see Colombia go in one way or another. And
even though the platform of the ingeniero Rodolfo was pretty liberal, like he was talking about gay rights and trans rights, and he was going to respect the rights of abortion that are already in place in the country. So there wasn't a lot of right-wing stuff, with the exception of when it came to like law and order and stuff like that, which obviously with Petro, they have something called La Primera Línea. That's basically Antifa, the ones that go burn down the cities. Something happens, they send them out, they fucking cause mayhem. They do not go to jail. And if they do go to jail, then they get out immediately. He called for the pardoning of all of those kids from last year's or 2 years. Remember the SOS Colombia? It's a very similar situation. And I won't forget that when this whole SOS Colombia garbage psyop was going on, there was a bunch of Trump-loving Republicans, Colombians here in downtown Miami, in Times Square, in Tampa, all over the country, protesting against the far-right government. And I was like, you fucking morons. Like, you guys are literally protesting for a Soros psyop, much more or less the same way that the BLM riots and the George Floyd stuff worked here. Yeah. So, and I made a whole like series of posts about it. Like,
and you were the first one to
like you guys don't understand that this is just how they're going to also take that country, and you guys are playing right along with them, and it's what they always do. Conservatives always stand with the wrong side in other countries. Every single time, does not fail.
Well, because we've gotten to the point where conservatives don't trust the media with anything that has to do with like our international news. So they won't believe the things that they hear on CNN or MSNBC when it comes to Trump. But when they open it up and then they hear news about what's going on in Ukraine or what's going on in Colombia or what's going on at the southern border,
they believe it.
And all of a sudden they believe it. And all of a sudden the same media that's been lying to you time and time and time again, all of a sudden has become the credible source for you to come with global news. It's probably even less credible on a global level than it is on a national level.
It's really unfortunate what's happening in Colombia. Honestly, I was like so pissed off. I already knew that this was going to happen. Like, I boycotted Colombia all throughout the pandemic. I wanted nothing to do. I didn't go. My mom went a couple times. I never went with her because they are super, especially where I'm from, they're very left-wing now. They voted for Petro like by a lot. They're not a better city. They're not better at all. They're nowhere near as good as Medellin, which is a much more modern, nice, well-kept city. And they were obsessed with COVID, the masks, the bullshit. And I was like, I don't even want to go and like give money to these people. And I knew, here's a problem. The right-wing government of Colombia did fail the people, which is what pushes people to vote for that other extreme. right? No different than the Democratic Party failing people and them going to what they call now the extreme, which we know it's not, but that's what happens. So I don't necessarily, I understand why people would choose that radical left piece of crap, because the right didn't do shit.
Isn't that very similar to kind of what gets Barack Obama's campaign off the ground after such a dreadful representation by George Bush?
Yeah.
That people are like, well, the party hasn't done well for us, so here's, you know, the
hope.
Quite literally,
That's
the
literally
hope campaign. Here's this hope campaign, and maybe this is going to be where the difference comes in, you know? So I agree. I can see how that's happened, but it's very terrifying for, I think, particularly for me, seeing that it's not just Colombia.
No,
We're
it's
talking Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, all
under the
voting
left.
in socialist leaders. So it's
and every single time it happens, like in Chile, that happened last year. They also had those protests. They also let it get away with it, and then they get this guy in Chile. What's going on in Chile, it's so crazy because the guy and his cabinet have no idea what they're doing. He has put on a bunch of people with no experience at all, and not even like, okay, they have no experience in politics, but they ran this company,
right,
but they built this. So you have, you know what I mean? You have qualifications.
Right.
They're like nobodies. They're like a bunch of activists. So they're running the government to the ground. There's already protests against the left wing. Both Peru and Chile, their ratings for those two far left presidents are on the ground.
after a year.
After 1 year. They're on the ground. They're not doing well at all. And it's funny because Boric, who's the guy in Chile, he ran on a promise too about, oh, the police are killing these peaceful protesters after in Chile, Antifa was burning down the cities. So he runs on this whole thing of he's going to hold the police accountable and he's going to get rid of like, the Homeland Security people and all this stuff. Now there's uprisings against him. And guess what he's doing? He's using force, and he's going to use force to control the people going against him, because that's what dictators do. And it's so satisfying to me, honestly. It's like, okay, I hope it gets really fucking bad for them.
You know what's the
really
one thing about, so
all of them.
We spoke about how the liberal left loves to say that, you know, it's just trauma that drives people to be so scared of communism, because communism isn't the scary thing. Well, we know the truth about communism, and one thing that's very true about communists is that when they're ready to turn around and attack people, their first dissidents are actually the people that helped bring them to power.
Right.
That's usually the way that it works, because they could be the very first people that turn against them and can remove them from power. So that's what communists do. So to all of you wonderful comrades out there, I hope you're ready, because
they'll be the first ones in the gulags.
natural law of this is that you will be the first ones in the gulag before I get there.
It's like that meme that shows like one of these fucking purple hair trannies in a gulag, and it's like, hello, comrade, where's the free healthcare? And it's like, face the wall. Hello, comrade. Like, you're gonna die. It's liberal democracy. You're gonna fucking die.
And it's the fact. So there is a certain sense of
honestly, I don't care. I'm so mad at it. I don't care if they burned down Colombia. I took any money that we have, we'll bring it here. We've sold apartments. I don't, honestly, I'm at that point where I'm so like pissed off and black pilled that's like suffer. It's just like here, like when people are like, oh, like what's going on? I'm like, everybody has to suffer.
Well, we've been through
Everybody has to fucking suffer. I don't care.
Because taking the proactive approach where you're like, hey guys, I know that things are not that bad, but they're about to get a lot worse. Having people be like, oh, well, no, we don't, you know, whatever. We'll just wait until that happens. It's like, well, then you know what? I hope that things progress to get a lot worse for you. I can't wait until gas is $15, until the meat is $30 a pound, until you there's a lack of work because there's robots taking over your jobs. I can't wait for that to happen, to then at that point, maybe then you'll see the desperation and why this is something that has to happen immediately. There is no backseat to taking back our country.
Well, and Tim Pool was saying today on his Timcast that he really does believe that there is a civil war looming amongst, especially with this GOP.
We're talking about secession already.
So, and, you know, Anthony and I were talking about it. He's like, you know, it's not a good thing. You know, the federal government's going to come in and like drone everybody. And I'm like, no, and I agree with that. I don't necessarily think that anyone's cheering for a civil war amongst Americans. But I do think that the end outcome of it all will be violent. I do think that, and it's already getting violent. Last week, there was a crazy leftist that literally drove his car into a Trump store. Yep. And I don't know where, Washington or something. I forgot the state. I don't remember where,
but I saw.
He drove his car. Imagine being that hateful that you drive your car into a store to kill people.
It's 2022.
Literally.
It's 2022, and these people are still losing their shit about a Trump store in 2022 to kill people. And they've driven cars into people. I mean, it was that Antifa guy that killed that Trump supporter in Oregon, and he was on Vice and everything. There was the other guy that killed the other Trump supporter in Colorado. Yep.
There's been so many examples of hate crimes against conservatives and Trump supporters. There's all the abortion centers that are being burnt all over the country. In fact,
well, we saw it during the BLM riots. I told there's a church in Kendall had a statue of Christ defaced. They painted over it in Kendall, here in Miami, Florida.
I never saw it, and I think that had Latinos seen it, things would have been a little bit less. They probably did it at night when no one's around.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. Because I'm like,
the Latinos would it would have been an only in date.
Yeah,
if you mess with the Latino Santos, it's gonna be an only in date.
Coming to you.
It's coming to you.
We haven't discussed what it is that this is gonna do to the southern border, right? Because we're not gonna see the impact of this immediately, but when you've got 5-6 major countries in Latin America.
So most of the rich people, most of the people that have money, that are well off, they've already been investing in other countries, obviously here, before, since 2020, since they saw things getting really bad with the riots and stuff like that, buying real estate and moving their money here. But what's going to happen is the poor people are going to get poorer, just like what happened in Venezuela. All the Venezuelans came here. They open up their businesses. They have their nice houses. They go on vacation. And then you have the middle class really freaking struggling, getting to like that lower class. And then you have the really poor getting even poorer, having to immigrate to other countries in Latin America and then make it all the way to the southern border to come here because they're starving.
Well, because that's what they do. They kill off the middle class. So then if you kill off the ability for somebody to exist in the middle class and you're either filthy rich where you're not affected by it or you're just living in incredible poverty, then you push out the middle class from these countries. Right. And where do you think they're going to go?
They're going to come here.
I have distant cousins because I've got a large family that clearly continues to live in Cuba that I don't have a lot of relationship with because I grew up in the States. But I've heard of 3 different family members that had left Cuba to go to Latin America in order to follow a legal process to come into this country and decided against it and went with coyotes to cross the Mexican border because that was a lot faster. And guess what? They get cell phones, they get checks,
because
they
get
come
money. They come in as refugees at the border. Correct. All you have to say is that you come from a country like you're facing political persecution, blah, 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 like Cuba, and then you get all these benefits. You get into a home, you get the cell phone, you get the vouchers, you get everything. So we're going to have
I wonder how many people are aware of that these people are walking in through our border and they're put into an office just for record keeping. So-and-so came in. Here you go. Here's cash, an envelope with cash. Here's a plane ticket to whatever city it is that's going to take you in. Here's your phone.
Yeah, we've had conservative journalists film the whole thing and take pictures of their
has spent significant time at the border, and this is what she discusses that for the first time that she went out there, it was so shocking to see the envelopes being handed out and putting these people on planes. And the real terrifying part, which is the part that the left always wants to call us crazy for talking about, how the majority of these children that are coming in through the southern border are coming in with grown men.
Oh, yeah.
With grown men that claim, we lost the mom somewhere. The mom stayed behind, or we lost her somewhere on the trip. And you've got these clear kids that are in shock over what they just had to experience and the trajectory of crossing the border, which is no easy feat to begin with, much less when you add on top of that nasty coyotes that are aggressive, that will rape them, that will beat them. So to be out on the border, to get that feedback directly from people that we know that are out there, boots on the ground, and to hear that these people are being let in by the thousands on a nightly basis, and that not only are they being let in, here's cash, here's a plane ticket, here's a phone. It's terrifying because it is an active attack on the country. And I think that we've talked about it before. I think that the Democrats are hoping that new immigrants that come in through the southern border are more than likely to vote Democrat. And they're relying heavily on swaying that new wave of Latinos that are coming in, which is why our platform is why we knew that having this platform was so important, because Latinos need to know the truth about what they're coming into. One last thing on this topic, one of the things that Natalie told me that really stuck with me of her time in the border is that small window that they get before they're going through processing when they first come in through the border, they basically just have enough time to hand them a water, like, hey, do you need something, really quick before they go into processing. And she was telling me how there's volunteers out there that basically in that small window tell them, you need to watch out for the Democratic Party because they want to enact the same exact policies here in the States that made you leave your country. Like almost like a plea, like, please don't come in here and act as a useful idiot for the left out of desperation, el hambre, la necesidad that exists when you're crossing the border, right? So I think that now more than ever, which will probably take us into our next topic, we've seen that there's a lot of emphasis on Latinos, whether it's in media, how we're voting, what we're doing, what we're not doing, who we're following, the influence that we have. And I think that a lot of that does have to do with the fact that they are expecting this higher influx of immigration coming in through a wide open southern border.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what I said that one time, which is that the Republicans sit here and say, same thing with the Democrats, we can't allow Putin to spray communism all over the Eastern, blah, 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 because they still think that he's trying to, make the USSR come back together and whatnot. You can't even keep communism out of the Western Hemisphere. South America is almost completely red from communism. There's only a few countries, and the largest country, which is Brazil, God knows that they're probably trying to steal that election as well. We know the the Supreme Court of Brazil is extremely corrupt. We know that they're hitting Bolsonaro super hard.
Have been. You
can't even keep communism out of Latin America. You've lost almost the entire continent. You
lost a war on World War II. The end of World War II was a lie.
Literally. And it's just incredible to me because Barack Obama and Joe Biden are to blame for also what's going on in Colombia with the peace treaty that they were part of when Obama offered that money to Juan Manuel Santos, the president of Colombia back then, to have this fake treaty with the FARC. And that is actually what normalized the far left guerrillas getting into positions of power. And then this guy runs, and look at the country now.
And the FARC was violent.
La
FARC is violent.
This is literally the United States doing fucked up stuff again in South America.
Wait, Linda, so you mean to tell me that America destabilized yet another country?
Yet another country.
No, shocker.
Yet another country.
Shocking, truly.
Yep.
Said no one ever knows anything about the American military complex.
In Clown World Global Homo News today, we have J-Lo calling her daughter,
her 14-year-old
daughter, a they them. It was actually, I saw the video, it was quite embarrassing of her talking about they them. At first I thought she was talking about her twins as they them, and then she's talking about her daughter who now dresses like a boy, when only a few years ago during the Super Bowl she was a nice, cute young girl. So now we have this mega Latina star, right, using these pronouns, playing into the whole Latinx delusion.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
Oh, I don't think it's a coincidence either. I don't think it's
a coincidence at all.
I think it's just more of the puppet masters telling her what to do, when to say it, because the Latino population needs to be
maneuvered.
They
need to be
maneuvered and persuade that liberalism and this Marxism and this confusion, gender confusion, it's the way. So here's J-Lo, massive Latina star.
Okay, time out. It's time that it's addressed, and this goes out to people on the left and people on the right. Stop trying to make J-Lo happen for Latinos.
For real.
Please.
She's so cringe. She was the worst concert that I ever went to.
J-Lo
I went to her concert and I was like, when does this end? This is the worst concert I've ever been to.
J-Lo is not a solid representation
She's
of
not.
what most Latinos represent. In fact, J-Lo is the Latinx creation of the media, which
Actually,
is why none of this seems like an accident by me. I think that we know that the media has been paying special close attention to the Latino vote since 2020. We are in a midterm election. The topic of LGBTQ rights is huge. The pushback on Latinos against LGBTQ rights and how it is that that the LGBTQ, I guess, political stance, if you will, contradicts just basic culture or normalities of our upbringings. And in order to be able to make it, I guess, make the liberalism cool. Yeah, let's put J-Lo and have her be the one to push this out. But I hate to break it to you guys. No one cares.
No one
J-Lo
cares.
stopped being relevant in 2002. I very
She tried to make it happen when she was like, El anillo pa' cuando? And that was so cringe and gay.
It
was like the most cringe and gay.
¿Cuántos más anillos? ¿Hasta cuándo? Like, there's been like 7 anillos.
It's literally like the Tom Brady of the Latinx. She's the Tom Brady. It's bad. I'm telling you, I went to her concert and it was a gift. And I was like, when the fuck does this end?
Yeah,
it's so terrible. It's just bad.
It's very cringe.
And also Elon Musk.
Oh,
you know, I didn't know he
Elon
had
Musk,
apparently an 18-year-old trans daughter, trans son.
So does he have a son?
I think
it's confusing. Does he have a
Hold
son
on.
or a daughter?
Hold on. Let's get this right.
So
Elon Musk's daughter has filed paperwork to change her first and last name. Elon's daughter, who is transgender, stated the reason was gender identity and the fact that I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. So basically, she's disavowing Elon Musk because he's too base. He's too base, and he's buying Twitter, and his ex is dating that what is it called? Manning, tranny lady from the army. What's it called? Chelsea Manning.
No,
you didn't know about this?
No.
Okay, so the cheese between Antifa and the trannies on Twitter is that Elon Musk decided to buy Twitter because he's pissed off that his ex Grimes is dating Chelsea Manning.
I have no idea who that is. Is this like a famous transgender?
Yes, this is a famous transgender army person, Chelsea Manning. I could be whatever. The point is,
let's pull up a picture of Chelsea Manning, please.
Hold on.
I see Chelsea Manning.
Okay, exactly. So now Chelsea Manning is dating Grimes. So the whole chisme on Twitter is that Elon bought Twitter because he was pissed off that a transgender woman took his Grimes. Woman? So as a revenge and to let the transphobes loose on Twitter, he bought Twitter. This is a conspiracy theory by the left. I swear. I did the research. I have the proof. I swear.
This is their new thought process. No, I'm here looking at Chelsea Manning now. I had come across the tweet. I'm like, was it the tweet? Because I know that he made a tweet that said pronouns are dumb or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like just something basic.
Oh, there you go. His daughter's like, I never want to do this.
Why do you hate me, Dad? You're ruining my life.
Drives away in her Tesla.
In her Tesla.
Oh, man.
No, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I'm thinking celebrities at the end of the day. I mean, I don't know how much control Elon Musk has over his daughter, but I am thinking that with the J-Lo thing, there's definitely, she's clearly all Hollywood, all of industry. She's created by the industry. And it does seem, timing-wise, just very convenient to the main topics that are being discussed at hand right now, I would say.
Absolutely.
I'm a little conspiracy-minded, but
I do think that I'm with you on the J-Lo thing. I do think that J-Lo was pushed to do that. So that's that. Moving on, we may have a ruling on Roe v. Wade by next week.
Maybe.
Or end of this week, they said.
I think that they'll find when is the right time to
I don't know, because there's people already traveling to Washington. There's a lot of talk in Washington already about this particular case. Jane's Revenge, which is a group of Antifa anarchists, already put out all these flyers all over DC saying that if abortions are safe, if abortions aren't safe, neither are you. And they're going to have, what do they call it? A night of riots, a night of carnage, or something like that.
Sounds awful. That sounds so purge.
They said it was like a night of purge, that they were not going to stand by it, and therefore they were going to burn down Washington, D.C. And I believe it. I mean, they already tried to kill Kavanaugh. So I would foresee that the justices, SCOTUS justices, are hiding, well protected. I hope.
What do you hadn't Pelosi declined extra security for the justices?
Yeah. I do foresee them overturning Roe v. Wade.
No, I do foresee them overturning Roe v. Wade.
That is going to happen, and the country is going to burn a little bit.
Okay, so that's where I was going with it. I don't care. I think the country will burn. I think that they'll try to burn down the country.
Whatever.
Now, what I am curious about is, after living the summer of love of 2020 and watching Republicans do absolutely nothing as they burn down our country, and then have so much to say after January 6th, I'm just wondering what the response is going to be to a second wave of violent protest. Are we going to allow Republican representatives to remain quiet, or are we going to make enough
in Florida
noise?
We ready, motherfuckers. We ready here. Let's go.
DeSantis
strapped.
We dare you. DeSantis said try it,
bitch.
DeSantis said try it. DeSantis said try it. We know that that's probably not going to happen here.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see what happens if they do try and burn down Washington again.
I don't care if they do. Well, Washington's a piece of shit, liberal shithole. It's the fucking swamp of the entire. I don't care if Antifa wants to burn it down.
I'm more concerned about
Antifa could burn it down.
I'm more concerned about like the actions that will show like the leaders within our own party. Like, are people going to condemn that action with the same? Yeah, I mean,
you're gonna have your Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, Matt Gaetz, Anthony Sabatini. You're gonna have your America First people condemn these riots, but then you're gonna have Nancy Pelosi and what's the black lady's name with the face?
Wilson?
Auntie
Linda.
What's her name?
No.
Whatever. That other lady, that one, all the crazies are gonna be like, this is just rage, and this is just they're gonna do.
I don't give a shit.
Protesters are gonna do what they do.
But I don't give a shit what they're gonna say. I'm worried about the people in our party. Democrats are gonna say the most outlandish communist shit that forever. And
our
always.
People, because it's about abortion, they'll probably condemn it.
Let's hope so, because I mean, they don't have a lot of things that they can stand strong on. It's like Republicans, rhinos have always stood on two topics and thought that was going to be the end all be all. I'm pro-life and pro-guns.
Yeah,
and you guys are already being real soft when it comes to gun laws.
Yeah, for real.
So the only thing that you have left to fight is pro-life. And I'm letting you know right now, conservatives are fed up with everything else. There's no more middle ground with abortions. That's it. We're done.
Yeah, we're done.
We're not this push
don't care.
for late-term abortions, for after-term. It's not going to happen. Nobody's swaying anymore. Yeah. If anything, the only thing that you are doing is pushing people more towards the conservative right to say, oh, is that where you want to take abortions? Well, how about nobody gets an abortion ever again?
Ever.
Sorry.
Ever.
I mean, that's what happens when you have to fight extremes. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to kill babies out of the womb. Well, you've lost your mind. How about now, heartbeat bill? The moment there's a heartbeat, you can't kill your baby. Mm-hmm. Sorry if you don't like it.
Washington Post actually put up this headline, which is so disturbing. It's about an 18-year-old, and it says that she was going to have an abortion, and then, she found out she was going to have an abortion. 48 hours later, the Texas law, it's enacted. So then now she has twins. And I'm like, how disturbing is it that this person, literally, her twins are going to see how she was exploited by the liberal media because she chose life, and they're trying to turn it into look how awful it is.
And actually,
twins.
she's with the baby's father.
Perverted. It's so demented. It's so twisted. Yeah. It's like, what is wrong with you people? When abortions used to be, like we've talked about before, a very personal matter, something that you weren't out there discussing and saying, shout out your abortion, or like these liberal women that are putting blood all over their vaginas and stuff.
Rare. That was the key. It was supposed to be.
That's how Bill Clinton described it. It was a rare circumstance.
It was supposed to be rare circumstances. And now, I mean, if you guys don't see how far gone we are as a society, when there is an entire demographic on TikTok of trending videos of women, I should be very careful with that, of young girls going in to get abortions and recording themselves, filming funny TikToks about how cute it is to kill your baby. If you don't see how far gone we are as a society where this is entertainment, I don't know what to tell you guys about what comes next. Yeah. Because it is going to get worse. And it's going to get worse because of situations like this. When we've fallen into a place in society where we have normalized not just normalized, glorified the killing of innocent children, we're lost. Yeah. We're lost. That's where we're at. So,
but I do think it's going to be overturned, and I think we're going to see insane riots, and I don't care. I don't care.
And I don't care. No me importa. No me importa. No me importa. No me importa. No me
importa. I just don't care. That's where I'm at. You know, and it's unfortunate, but it's just the way things are now. You know, people want to play these games like in 2020, like Mayor Suarez handing out bottles of water to BLM. Oh, we're here for you. We're here to make peace with the blacks. All that stuff. Todo esa, how do you say it in English? Alcahuetas. You know, all that has led us to a very dark path that we are now, which is normalizing violence,
right, because normalizing it's normalized crime, violence. He handed out water bottles when these people were breaking down Bayside. Yeah. When they were lighting police cars on fire, our mayor took a knee with BLM and handed them waters and normalized that. Yeah, if it wasn't for Governor Ron DeSantis and his fist of iron, his iron fist when it comes to ruling down on these communists and criminals. And you know what I remember? Let's talk about the fact of how much of this is orchestrated. Do you remember when that first night of riots here in Miami? It was 20, don't quote me right now, but it was the first night of riots. There was 20-something arrests. And out of those 20-something arrests, only 2 of them were Florida citizens.
Oh, yeah.
Not Miami.
I mean, I spoke to the cops myself.
2 Florida
Georgia,
residents.
Minneapolis, Kansas. They came from everywhere.
What are they doing here?
Yeah.
You know what else I remember? I remember in...
you know what else I remember? You know what else I remember?
You know what else comes to my mind right now?
You know what?
In July 2020, I put together a Save the Children rally. And I remember specifically being approached by these 2 individuals, a young girl and a young man, clearly Antifa, clearly Antifa. And they were like, what are you guys protesting Antifa here? And I explained, I'm like, oh, you know, probably things that you disagree with. This is, you know, Save the Children. And the guy flat out told me, they're like, no, I helped put protests together. In fact, I have something that's coming up next in the next month or 2 where we're going to be busing people in. Straight up what this guy tells me, he's like, maybe I can help you get more people for your next protest. What the fuck does that mean? We're going to be busing people in?
Yeah, that's what they do. And that's what they do in Cali too. That's what they do in Colombia. They were busing all this indigenous poor people from little towns into the city to burn it down.
And what that told me too was that the fact that he didn't care that we were waving American flags, that we were clearly there on conservative issues, made me feel that maybe this person gets compensated for bringing people into protests. It's
crazy.
It's mad.
It's crazy.
It's mad crazy. But we are going to see exactly how it goes and exactly how crazy these demons, because if you are that activated in anger over not being able to kill babies, and I'm sorry to break it to you, you're probably under demonic possession, but that's a conversation for another day.
With that being said, this concludes episode 12.
Was that it? Are we ending on the demonic possession?
No? We're ending on that was the cue. That was the cue to end on demonic possession. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're also on Apple Podcasts if you guys want to do a listen form, or Spotify, and follow our TikTok. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.